My older sister, who had always hated studying, suddenly announced she wanted to go to college. Not only that, but she convinced our parents to marry me off to the son of a military officer, Erick, so they could use the dowry to fund her education. At that moment, I knew she had been reborn too. In my previous life, my sister believed education was useless. She married Erick right after graduating high school because his family offered a generous dowry. Later, when Erick was reassigned to a remote border region, she refused to move with him, complaining about the harsh environment. Meanwhile, I worked part-time jobs to put myself through college, eventually landing a secure government job and becoming a true city dweller. But my sister? While at the military district, she used her father-in-law's name to take bribes. Her actions led to his being investigated and demoted. And in the end, her mother-in-law kicked her out of the house. After her divorce, my sister went to Shanghai to invest in the stock market, only to lose everything when the market crashed, including our parents' retirement savings. Desperate and out of options, she came to me, demanding money to turn her life around. When I refused, she pulled a knife on me. In the chaos, I was stabbed 12 times. I bled out and died. When I opened my eyes again, it was the same moment my sister asked our parents to marry me off to Erick. This time, I readily agreed and immediately dropped out of school. Chapter 1. He's the son of an officer. What a great opportunity! If it weren't for Lisa taking that meal to Erick and his mother back then, do you think you'd even have this chance for marriage? So what if his father's an officer? Erick is just a low-ranking soldier right now. Once I get into college and gain a city residency, I'll have my pick of good men to marry, no matter how much our parents tried to persuade her. My sister, Lisa, remained as stubborn as ever. It was the 1970s. Erick and his mother had first arrived at our farm in utter poverty. Skin and bones, treated like outcasts. Everyone avoided them, too afraid to lend a hand. Only I, sneaking out at night, dared to bring them food and a cotton coat from home. In their gratitude, the first thing Erick and his mother did after returning to the city was propose marriage to me. But in my previous life, Lisa stole the credit. Because it had been dark that night, Erick's mother never saw my face clearly. She only asked which family I was from, and my parents didn't hesitate to claim it had been Lisa, their beloved eldest daughter. I could only watch as Lisa married the son of an officer and enjoyed a life of wealth and prestige. Basking in the limelight, university costs money. My father snapped, slamming his tobacco pipe onto the rickety wooden table, making it wobble precariously. We're so poor we can't even afford basic necessities. How are we supposed to pay for your education? Then let the second daughter marry Erick, Lisa said, her tone casual but cutting. We'll ask for a higher dowry from his family. That way, I'll have the tuition money I need to go to college. Lisa knew full well that marrying Erick meant becoming a military spouse, destined to follow him to the remote border regions, a place she herself wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole. Yet, she had no problem pushing me into that pit of fire. She walked over and snatched the book out of my hands, the rough edges of the pages scraping painfully against my palm. I've already spoken to the school, Lisa announced smugly. Your registration has been cancelled. She waved the confiscated textbook and workbook in front of me, sneering. From now on, the words school and studying have nothing to do with you. These will all be mine. So this wasn't a discussion, it was an announcement. I lifted my head to meet my sister's triumphant gaze, then smiled calmly. Sure, fine, our mother sighed, glancing at Lisa, whose decision was evidently unshakable. This child doesn't know what's good for her. You'll regret this one day. Mark my words. Then she turned to me with a look of disdain. You're the lucky one. You useless girl, marrying into Erick's family. You better remember to help your sister find a match. Erick's just a lowly soldier, not even worth mentioning. When your sister gets into college, she's bound to marry someone important, like a commander. Chapter 2. My parents were always like this. Anything good always went to my sister first. When it came to me, they only had 2 words, not worthy. All because my mother had endured 3 days of labor giving birth to me, nearly dying in the process. From then on, I was called a curse, a bad omen. Every time Lisa bullied me, my parents thought she was avenging them. This time, by marrying me off, the The so-called curse. They not only rid themselves of their burden but also earned Lisa's tuition money. My parents thought it was a great deal, so they eagerly had the matchmaker send word back to Erick's family, double the dowry. And the marriage was sealed. The matchmaker rolled her eyes but agreed with a forced smile. As she left, I overheard her muttering under her breath, repaying a single meal with such an inflated sense of self-worth. Erick's family received the message. Though they were clearly displeased, they reluctantly agreed. That very evening, the dowry arrived. Lisa paraded her new Shanghai brand watch from one end of the village to the other, basking in admiration. Meanwhile, my parents sat under the dim kerosene lamp, meticulously counting every bill in the stack of 1,200 yuan. My dowry, in stark contrast, was nothing more than a piece of old, worn-out fabric, using the sewing machine Erick's family had brought as part of the dowry. I worked late into the night, stitching together a shirt and a dress for myself. Lisa stood nearby, her voice dripping with sarcasm. Is this for you to use? A married-off daughter is like spilled water. If you break the sewing machine, what will mom use to make my new clothes later? Ignoring her taunts, I snipped the last loose thread and quietly returned to my room. On Lisa's desk lay her blank practice test sheets, untouched. I chuckled softly to myself. Lisa, you have no idea how much hardship it takes to get into a city college. In my past life, when the college entrance exams were reinstated, there weren't any teachers in the village who had experience preparing students for such an event. My parents told me to give up and stay home to farm, but I refused to accept my fate. I followed the educated youths in the village everywhere, pestering them with questions. When the educated youths were eventually sent back to their cities, I was left with no one to guide me. Undeterred, I trudged over 10 miles to the nearest town, wearing tattered cloth shoes, just to borrow study materials. I studied under trees while herding cattle, eating coarse cornbread and drinking cold water as I flipped through books. Every moment not spent working was dedicated to revising. And in the end, I earned a spot at a prestigious city university. My parents, ever boastful, never mentioned my struggles. They told anyone who'd listened that I was born with natural talent, that I'd glanced at a few textbooks and somehow aced the exams. Lisa believed them. She genuinely thought she was a genius too and could waltz into college by cramming at the last minute. Now, she clung to my old workbook like it was a cheat code for success. But what she didn't realize was that without grit and perseverance, there was no escaping this soul-crushing household. Chapter 3. Soon. It was the day of my wedding with Erick. His parents had booked a modest restaurant in the city for the ceremony. My parents, having never set foot in the city, were visibly uneasy. Lisa, on the other hand, couldn't hide her disdain as she watched their timid behavior. It's just a small restaurant, nothing special, nowhere near as grand as the White Swan in Guangzhou. She scoffed. True enough, it paled in comparison to the lavish lifestyle Lisa had indulged in during her previous life. After receiving bribes and living in opulence, the wedding was simple yet followed all the traditions. Erick's mother took my hand gently and said, "Diana, we wanted to host a more elaborate celebration, but the dowry was gathered in a rush, and we couldn't afford anything grander. I hope you'll understand." I smiled and reassured her it was fine, but Lisa rolled her eyes, unimpressed. If the general gave a simple nod, there'd be people lining up to pay for this. Who are you trying to fool with this sob story? Before Erick's mother could respond, a commotion erupted outside the banquet room. Erick, don't be stupid. The bride's entire family is here. If you call off the wedding now, how will your father hold his head up? Erick wanted to cancel the wedding? Erick's mother forced a smile, clearly panicked, and stepped out to assess the situation. Though I didn't have many memories of Erick, I knew he was a man of integrity. In our past life, after being reassigned to the harsh conditions of a border post, Erick never once complained, even when Lisa refused to join him because she found the environment unbearable. Later, when Lisa caused a scandal by misusing Erick's father's name for personal gain, leading to his demotion, Erick still honored their history and gave her a significant sum as part of their divorce settlement. He valued his promises and obligations, which made it hard to believe he would cancel the wedding at the last moment. From the faint gap in the door, I could see his childhood friends rushing out to calm him. Through the crack, I caught a glimpse of his face, sharp features, intense eyes. He had grown from the frail boy I once knew into someone strong and commanding. No matter what. I'm not marrying that bad omen. I'll repay my debt. But I can't take her as my wife. Bad omen? His words cut deep, leaving a sharp ache in my chest. My eyes turned cold. Lisa, standing nearby, burst out laughing, her tone dripping with mockery. Diana, I didn't realize your reputation as a bad omen had reached your future husband already. Then, leaning closer, she whispered smugly, a curse marrying a loser, it's a match made in heaven. I clenched my fists so tightly that my knuckles cracked. Moments later, Erick was practically shoved into the room by his friends, his reluctance written all over his face. Lisa crossed her arms and stood tall, her striking figure always making her the center of attention. But Erick seemed oblivious to everyone else. His gaze fixed squarely on me. Seeing his chiseled features up close, I was momentarily taken aback. His sharp, defined looks were more striking than any movie star I'd ever seen. No wonder Lisa always mentioned his appearance whenever she spoke about him. When Erick noticed the identical corsage pinned to my chest, his brows furrowed, and he blurted out, "Why is it you? Wasn't Lisa supposed to be the bride?" Lisa's face darkened, clearly annoyed at being overshadowed. Without hesitation, she retorted, "Who would want to marry a mere soldier like you? Know your place." She tossed her long black braids over her shoulder and turned her face away haughtily. Erick's expression shifted as he realized his blunder. Calmly, I spoke up. "You said you wanted to marry the girl who helped you and your mother back then. That girl was me." Erick's gaze froze, his chest visibly rising and falling. He looked at me with an intensity that seemed to hold years of suppressed emotion. It was as if he had been waiting for this moment for a long time. I know, he finally admitted. My eyes widened, and a bold thought flashed through my mind. "I'm sorry. Let's proceed with the wedding. I'll marry her," Erick declared firmly. Chapter 4. Everyone at the wedding was bewildered by Erick's behavior. But his mother quickly smoothed things over. He's just too excited about marrying his bride and got himself all confused. "What a silly boy," she joked. Though Erick's sudden shift in demeanor didn't go unnoticed. A red flush crept up Erick's neck and spread to his face. Lisa rolled her eyes with a snort of contempt and returned to her seat with an air of superiority. The rest of the wedding proceeded smoothly, though as the event was nearing its conclusion, Lisa decided to stir things up again. She casually mentioned how the rural environment was unsuitable for her studies and insisted that Erick find her a tutor in the city. The tension in Erick's expression was unmistakable. He clearly didn't want to be involved. But his mother quickly stepped in with enthusiasm. "Of course. We'll help. If the family's daughter asks for a favor, we can't say no." Without hesitation, she arranged for Lisa to stay at a guest house in the city so she could prepare for her exams. Before my parents left, they took turns nagging me with instructions. "Don't forget your roots now that you're married. Take some of Erick's nice things to your sister, she needs them more. Make sure she has 3 meals a day. And deliver them to her personally. Don't let her overwork herself. Your sister's exams are the family's priority. Taking care of her is your main duty." Lisa reclined lazily on her guest house bed, cracking sunflower seeds she had pocketed from the wedding banquet. A smug grin plastered across her face. "You hear that?" she sneered. "Just because you married into a big family doesn't mean you're anything special. Wherever you go, you'll always be stuck as my servant." My parents nodded vigorously in agreement, adding, "She's right. Never forget where you came from." I bit my tongue, swallowing my anger without a word. For the next 2 weeks, I ran back and forth between the guest house and Erick's home, tending to Lisa's every need. Erick, noticing the toll it was taking on me, ordered the family's cook to take over meal deliveries. But Lisa, as dramatic as ever, smashed a bowl right in front of the cook. "Go back and tell Diana not to flaunt her so-called title as the commander's wife in front of me. If I hadn't passed up the chance to marry Erick, she'd still be herding cows on some godforsaken mountain." When Erick found out, he was furious and insisted on sending Lisa back to the village. Lisa, however, wasn't one to back down. She sneered openly at him, her words dripping with venom. "Don't get too full of yourself, Erick. One day, you'll probably be shipped off to some desolate border region, never to return. Who knows? Maybe you'll die out there, and no one will even bother to bury you. Her words struck a nerve. Erick's eyes blazed with anger, his whole body trembling. I'd heard stories about Erick in my past life, how the poplar trees of the borderlands became his grave, and his remains were never brought back. Erick glared at Lisa, fists clenched, shaking with rage, ready to unleash his fury. I stepped in and dragged him home, trying to defuse the situation. Once we were alone, Erick turned to me, visibly upset. Why do you always side with her and not me? He snapped, his frustration spilling over for the first time in front of me. I hesitated, unable to find the right words. A strange tension hung in the air between us, one I couldn't quite place. Now wasn't the time. I just needed to wait a little longer. Chapter 5. On the last day of the college entrance exam, I was even more nervous than Lisa. If my memory served me right, Erick's transfer order would also arrive today. Lisa strutted confidently into the exam hall, tossing me a smug remark before disappearing through the doors. Diana, after today, let's see what else you have to boast about in front of me. My parents watched her go with hopeful expressions, as if their wildest dreams would materialize within hours. I could practically see the imaginary smoke rising from their metaphorical ancestral graves. My palms were damp with sweat. When I turned around, I saw Erick standing across the road, waving at me with a wide smile. In his hand, he held a brown envelope stamped with an unmistakable red seal. My heart skipped a beat. I rushed over to him, my anxiety growing with every step. But Erick's warm, carefree grin helped settle my nerves. Did it go through? I asked. It's done, he replied, handing me the envelope. I opened it quickly. Inside was an official transfer order, assigning him to Debushan Island. It wasn't the remote frozen wasteland I had feared, but it wasn't close by either. It wasn't quite what I had hoped for. Disappointment flickered across my face as I looked up at him. You're still leaving? Erick reached out and gently ruffled my hair, a playful smile tugging at his lips. This is already a good result. Soldiers can't avoid hardship. You know. He was right. Of course. But that didn't ease the knot of worry tightening in my chest. He noticed my silence and chuckled. Why are you so worried about where I get stationed? Relax. You don't need to follow me to the island. Life on a military base can be tough. Stay here. Get a job at the garrison, or go to college, whatever you prefer. There wasn't a hint of blame in his tone. If anything, his sincerity made me feel even more uneasy. What are you talking about? I muttered. It's not the hardship I'm afraid of. I'm afraid you'll. Afraid I'll what? He interrupted, leaning in close, his face so near that I could feel his breath warm against my cheeks. My mind went completely blank. Afraid you'll die. Erick froze, his smile fading as he studied my face. Then he asked, almost hesitantly, Diana, do you believe in reincarnation? I stared into his eyes, my heart racing. His words confirmed what I had begun to suspect. Erick had been reborn too. I didn't marry you in my past life, he admitted softly, his voice tinged with regret. I married Lisa. Your parents said she was the one who saved me and my mom, but no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't love her. So when the transfer came, I volunteered for the harshest and most remote post, just to escape her. Sure enough, she couldn't stand the desolation of the frontier. Within days, she packed her bags and returned to the city. Later, during the army downsizing, she used my father's name to scam my comrades, promising them she could pull strings to keep them in the military. But she didn't have that kind of power. Even my father couldn't have done it. When her schemes unraveled, the fallout was devastating. My father, he died in prison, disgraced. Erick's voice cracked as he spoke. I could see his shoulders trembling with suppressed emotion. I hated her, he continued, but she was my wife, and I thought she had once saved my life. So I couldn't bring myself to take revenge. I divorced her, sent her back home, and thought I was done. At this point, Erick's body shook so much that I instinctively wrapped my arms around him, holding him tightly as he poured out the rest of his story. But then I found out the truth. He whispered, his voice breaking. It wasn't Lisa who saved us that night. It was you. Chapter 6. I remember clearly how, after her divorce, Lisa returned to the village, bitter about the small settlement she had received. She wasted no time bad-mouthing Erick's family, and in one careless rant, let slip the truth about her deception. Even before she stabbed me in my previous life, she screamed curses, blaming her misfortunes on how she had sacrificed herself by taking my place to marry Erick. Turns out, Erick already knew about the truth. I gently patted his back as he buried his face into the crook of my neck, his breath warm and uneven against my skin. It's okay, I whispered. It's all in the past. The important thing is that this time, we didn't miss our chance. He chuckled, wiping his tears as he pinched my nose playfully. You're surprisingly optimistic, little one. Just as I was about to tighten my hold on him, I caught sight of a face I loathed in the distance. Lisa stood there, her features twisted with irritation, a few strands of hair escaping her braids. She marched toward us with her usual scowl, her mouth already spilling complaints. That stupid workbook of Diana's is useless. And the tutor Erick's mom found? Garbage! There were so many questions I couldn't even answer. My parents hovered around her like loyal subjects, rushing to reassure her. If you can't answer them, neither can anyone else. Don't worry. You'll get in. We have good fortune on our side, my father said. Hearing this, Lisa brightened a little, nodding as if it made perfect sense. True. They say the standards are low since the exams just started back up. I'll probably get into a top school without a problem. I couldn't help but stifle a laugh. Lisa, already anxious, snapped her head toward me, her face contorting with anger. She had been looking for someone to vent her frustration on, and I had given her the perfect excuse. If I don't get into university, it'll be because of your stupid workbook, she barked. Storming toward me, she raised her hand to strike, but before she could make contact, Erick caught her wrist and twisted her arm behind her back. Ah, what are you doing, Erick? Lisa screamed, drawing the attention of students leaving the exam hall. Erick, still wearing his military uniform, didn't want to cause a scene, so he let her go and positioned himself between us protectively. Lisa massaged her wrist, her gaze landing on the transfer letter I held in my hands. Oh, a transfer to the borderlands. Huh? She sneered. Erick, let me tell you something, aside from your looks, what else do you even have going for you? Your father might be a commander, but he never abused his position, and look where that got him, raising a useless son like you. You're the laughingstock of Haicheng. Lisa twisted Erick's family's integrity, something rare and admirable, into an insult. I couldn't stay silent any longer. Lisa, no matter what Erick has or doesn't have, he's my husband. You have no right to criticize him. This enraged Lisa. She lunged toward me, but Erick restrained her once again, holding her back with ease. Diana, you're actually defending him now? Who do you think you are, talking to me like this? She spat, her face red with fury. Have you forgotten how you almost killed Mom when you were born? You're nothing but a debt to this family, your whole life. You owe us. You were born to serve us, to pay off that debt. And if you dare talk to me like that again, I'll show you what happens. Her bloodshot eyes and clenched fists made her look like she wanted to tear me apart. Before Erick could fully subdue her, my mother appeared and slapped me across the face. The sharp sound echoed in the air, and my cheek stung painfully. My vision blurred for a moment as my head buzzed from the blow. You ungrateful brat, she shouted. Helping outsiders bully your own sister? I should have never given birth to you. I pressed my hand against my burning cheek, disbelief washing over me. If they hated me this much, what was I even holding on to? Fine, I said, my voice trembling but firm. Name your price. What will it take for you to let me go? You regret having me? Well, I regret having parents like you. My father, enraged, rolled up his sleeves, ready to teach me a lesson, but Lisa stopped him, her eyes gleaming with greed. Is that what you want? She hissed. Fine, pay us back for raising you, and we'll leave you alone. How much? I asked, my voice cold. Lisa smirked. 1,000 yuan. After all these years of feeding you, clothing you, and housing you, that's the least you owe us. 1,000 yuan, an astronomical amount for most families, let alone for me. But my lips curled into a bitter smile. If that's what it took to sever all ties, I'd find a way. Chapter 7. Lisa truly had no conscience. Her actions were nothing short of despicable. Growing up, I always wore her hand-me-down clothes and ate whatever scraps no one else wanted. Keeping me around probably cost less than feeding a pig on the production team. The only significant expense was my high school tuition, and even that came after I knelt by my parents' bed all night, begging them to let me study. Clenching my teeth, I said, "Fine, 1,000 yuan it is. Once I give you this money, we're done. I'll no longer be part of this family." I grabbed Erick's hand and left without a backward glance, ignoring Lisa's shouting behind me. "Diana, I can help you get that money." There's no need. I'll figure it out. Tomorrow, I'm going with you to Tahitian Island. I'll have that 1,000 yuan within 6 months. Erick looked at me with a mixture of surprise and admiration. After a pause, he nodded firmly. "All right, I trust you. I know you can do it." Tahitian Island, located near Zhu County, was rapidly becoming a hub for pearl farming. In my previous life, I had worked for the city's fisheries bureau and had interacted with many pearl farmers. I was fascinated by the industry back then, but as a public servant, I wasn't allowed to engage in business ventures. This time, I finally had the chance to dive into the pearl market. Erick supported me wholeheartedly. He even contacted a friend in Zhu County to arrange temporary accommodations for me near the market. This way, I could focus on work while visiting Erick on the island whenever possible. In those first few months, I studied everything about pearl farming and the local market. With my prior experience at the Fisheries Bureau, establishing connections with buyers came naturally. Before the second-generation pearl market even peaked, I had already secured contracts with over 100 merchants for direct sales. In less than 6 months, I had made a significant profit as a middleman. Gathering the 1,000 yuan my family demanded was a piece of cake. The day I returned home to pay off my debt, Lisa was dumbfounded. My stylish clothes and smooth, radiant skin, thanks to the humid southern climate, were a stark contrast to her disheveled appearance. Lisa looked me up and down, a mix of envy and resentment on her face. "Judging by how you look, you didn't follow Erick after all. You're just living it up while leaving your husband to suffer in the borderlands." I met her gaze calmly and replied, "Who told you I didn't go with Erick? I've been living with him on Tahitian Island." Tahitian Island? Isn't he supposed to be stationed in some remote borderland? Lisa looked confused. Without responding to her directly, I pulled a stack of crisp bills from my bag and placed it in front of my parents. 1,000 yuan. Not a cent more or less. This pays off everything you think I owe you. From now on, we are no longer family. My parents eagerly grabbed the money, counting it bill by bill as though it were the most precious treasure. "It really is 1,000 yuan. Diana, how did you earn this? Who knew you were so capable?" For once, my mother's tone wasn't condescending. "Your sister didn't mean what she said. We're all family. There's no need to talk about debts. It's all in the past." As she spoke, she carefully wrapped the money in a patterned handkerchief and tucked it into her pocket. I knew full well that it would end up in Lisa's dowry chest before the day was over. I raised and sold pearls. There's a county near Tahitian Island that's thriving with pearl farming. That's where I earned this money, I explained. Lisa couldn't hold back any longer. She slammed her chair to the ground. "Diana, what is this nonsense? You were supposed to be suffering in some remote borderland. How did you?" I looked at her with feigned innocence and said, "Oh, who told you Erick was stationed at the border?" His transfer orders clearly said Tahitian Island. I went with him as his wife and found an opportunity to make some money while staying nearby. What's wrong with that? Lisa's lips trembled with rage as her entire body shook. "So, all this time, I've been slaving away preparing for that stupid exam? I failed the university entrance exam. I don't even have a decent tutor. If I had known this, I would have just married Erick myself." Chapter 8. A few months ago, on the day the university entrance exam results were released, as expected, Lisa failed. The celebratory banner she'd prepared for her top scorer dream went unused, and she became the butt of jokes among the village peers. Now, everyone in the village loved to compare me to Lisa. I was the proud wife of a soldier, while she remained a simple village girl. Lisa fought back, claiming that once she repeated the year, she would surely get into college. And as for me, stuck in the borderlands, I wouldn't even know if I'd ever make it back. But the day I returned home to repay my debt, Something inside her completely snapped. I'm not retaking the exam. Let whoever wants to take it deal with it. In a fit of rage, Lisa tore her exam papers and practice books into shreds, scattering them like snowflakes through the air. Grabbing me by the collar, she yanked me forward so hard it sent a sharp sting down my neck. Go back and divorce Erick. Tell him it was all a mistake. That the person who saved him was me. I chuckled coldly. And why should I? Lisa snatched a rolling pin from the kitchen counter. With a sickening crack, the world went black. When I came to, I was in the cellar at home. My forehead was clumsily wrapped in a blood-soaked cloth, and my vision was still hazy. I mustered all the strength I had and pounded on the cellar door, once, twice, 3 times. Lisa! Dad! Mom! Let me out! I kept banging until my fists were raw and bleeding. Finally, I heard movement above. Lisa's voice came, cold and menacing. Diana, here's the deal. Either you go back and ask for a divorce yourself, and let me marry Erick, or I'll find you some random man. Make sure the rice is cooked, and let Erick see you for the broken shoes you are. My heart sank. My choices were neither choices at all. Still, I had to think fast. A temporary retreat seemed like the best way out. Lisa, I'll go back and ask for a divorce. I'll do exactly as you say. Just let me out of here. A faint sliver of light leaked through the cellar door as Lisa's face came into view. Remember this. When you go back, you tell everyone it was me who saved Erick and his mother. Otherwise. But then, something changed. Lisa's expression darkened, and her eyes glinted with malice. Suddenly, she kicked me back down the cellar stairs. Pain exploded across my back as I hit the hard steps, and my limbs went numb. I barely managed to shield my head. No, you're too cunning. If I let you out now, you'll never do what I say. Finding some random man is the safer bet. Her voice was fading, but her words pierced me like knives. Lisa, I'll do as you say. I swear, just let me out. I pleaded desperately, dragging my battered body toward the door, but there was no response. The minutes ticked by, each one slower than the last. Then I heard it, a man's voice from above. My heart raced as I groped for the worn pickaxe in the corner of the cellar. My hands shook as I prepared for a fight. The door creaked open, and faint moonlight trickled in. Without thinking, I swung the pickaxe through the gap with all my might. No scream of pain followed. Instead, the pickaxe stopped short, as if caught by someone impossibly strong. I tried to pull it back, but the grip on the other side wouldn't budge. Panic shot through me. This wasn't just anyone, this was someone trained. I dropped the pickaxe and scrambled for another weapon, but in my haste, I tripped and landed hard on the ground. The sound of approaching footsteps made the hair on my neck stand up. Cold sweat soaked through my clothes as I curled into the corner, trembling. Please, I'm begging you, let me go. I'll give you money, 1,000, 2,000 yuan, whatever you want. Just let me go, and I'll repay you in the next life. A deep, familiar voice cut through the darkness. You've already spent 20 years being someone else's servant. Isn't that enough? Why promise another lifetime? The recognition hit me like a lightning bolt. Erick? Is that you? Chapter 9. Strong arms pulled me into an embrace, pressing me against a solid chest that felt like a dream. It's really you. How did you know I was here? I could feel Erick's heart pounding wildly against me. For the first time, I sensed genuine panic in him. You almost scared me to death, he muttered. Paul told me you went home to pay the money back, so I took leave and rushed here, just half a day late. And you were gone. I asked your parents, and they said you'd already left. But there was no trace of you at the station or in the county. I thought you'd been kidnapped. I sniffled softly. I was, in a way, by my own sister. Erick shrugged off his jacket and draped it over my shoulders, then tightened his arms around me protectively. I searched your house from top to bottom. The cellar was the last place I looked. If I hadn't found you there, his voice trembled slightly. I don't even want to think about it. The moonlight illuminated his chiseled profile, making him look more striking than ever. Without thinking, I leaned up and planted a quick kiss on his lips. Thank you. Erick's face instantly turned crimson. Whatever words he was about to say dissolved into awkward stammers, leaving him completely flustered. He helped me climb out of the cellar, his arms steadying me. As soon as we were out, Erick kicked open the door to my parents' house. Father-in-law, mother-in-law, he said coldly, his voice ringing with authority. This is the last time I'll call you that. From now on, Diana belongs to my family and has nothing to do with yours. My parents froze, terror written all over their faces as Erick strode in and slammed the kitchen knife onto the wooden bench beside my father's pillow. The blade stuck upright, just 2 finger widths away from his head, leaving him too frightened to speak. At the door, Lisa stood dumbstruck, clutching the arm of a sleazy-looking man who had followed her in. You, what are you doing here? Lisa stammered, her voice trembling. Erick's demeanor shifted, his military training and authority emanating like a silent threat. The sheer force of his presence made Lisa instinctively back away. With one swift punch, Erick sent the man she had brought with her sprawling to the floor. Get out! Erick barked. The man didn't need to be told twice. Scrambling to his feet, he bolted from the house, leaving Lisa behind to fend for herself. Erick turned his glare on her, his voice low but menacing. If you so much as think about harming my wife again, I'll take that knife and cut your legs off. Do you believe me? Lisa crumpled to the floor, unable to speak, her bravado drained away. I didn't spare her a second glance, my hand firmly in Erick's. I walked out of the house without looking back. I had done everything I could, said everything that needed saying. From here on out, their fate was theirs to decide. Chapter 10. 2 years later, Erick was promoted for his outstanding performance and became a chief of staff. Meanwhile, my pearl business flourished, expanding into international markets. I even set up exclusive counters in major shopping malls and began planning for my own jewelry brand. Erick was incredibly supportive, but he couldn't stand how little time we spent together. He insisted on transferring back to Haiching, which led to a heated argument, or rather, me lecturing him. Do you realize that transferring back to Haiching now would waste all the effort you've put into your posting at Black Mountain Island? You're just 1 year away from completing your term. Why can't you be patient? But I miss you, honey, Erick said with a pitiful expression. I sighed, glaring at him. Tough it out. Even if you came back to Haiching now, I wouldn't have time to entertain you. I'm too busy building my brand. Erick grudgingly agreed. A year later, he was promoted again, this time to a position in Beijing. After some hesitation, he called to discuss it with me. Honey, how about setting up your brand headquarters in Beijing? I couldn't help but laugh through the phone. Sure. My in-laws moved to Beijing as well. That year, we celebrated the new year together, happily making dumplings. I went to the room and returned with 2 red velvet boxes, one containing a pearl necklace for my mother-in-law and the other, a lapel pin for my father-in-law. My father-in-law, now retired, often dressed in a suit to accompany my mother-in-law to dances. Seeing their joy as I gave them each a gift, they couldn't stop smiling. Diana, you're more thoughtful than Erick. You're like our little guardian angel, my mother-in-law said with delight. Erick, nearly 30, stood behind his mom making faces at me. Of course, because Diana is your real child. I must have been adopted. Huh? Erick quipped, full of mock jealousy. The room filled with laughter, but my mother-in-law suddenly grew serious. Diana, I heard Lisa came looking for you recently. Is everything okay? I stopped playing around and reassured her. Don't worry, Mom, she won't bother me again. Chapter 11. After I returned home to pay back the money, Lisa completely gave up on the idea of taking the college entrance exams. She took the money I gave her and headed to Shanghai, claiming she would make a fortune in the stock market. With the experience she had from her previous life, she was convinced she would succeed. But Lisa wasn't cut out for trading stocks, and she ended up losing every penny. Eventually, she borrowed a few yuan and returned to the village on an old green train, empty-handed. My parents urged her to marry quickly, even suggesting some of the older bachelors in the village. But Lisa refused. She left again not long after. The next time I saw her, it was in connection with a human trafficking case. Erick's comrades heard a woman crying out my name and contacted him immediately. When I went to see her, Lisa begged me to save her, but I couldn't. Dozens of young girls had lost their youth because of her actions. She didn't deserve forgiveness. Erick's comrade asked if I knew her. I shook my head and walked away. That year, The maximum penalty for trafficking women and children was the death penalty. When I returned home, I sent my parents one final sum of money, enough to ensure they could live comfortably for the rest of their lives. But I didn't tell them about Lisa. They didn't know, and they would never know, that no one would ever visit them again. They were left to wait in that old house, clinging to the hope that their eldest daughter would return someday. Meanwhile, I finally escaped the family that had drained me of everything. My career soared to new heights. Advertisements for my brand played on national television. I had a loving husband, in-laws who treated me like their own daughter, and a peaceful, healthy life. That was enough. This life made me content. The tiny grain of sand had transformed into a radiant pearl. This glory, this happiness, I earned every bit of it. Every day from now on, I will shine brighter and live more brilliantly than ever.